William stood at the front door of his small apartment, keys trembling in his weathered hands. The 72-year-old man had just returned from his night shift at the grocery store where he worked as a bagger. His back ached, his feet throbbed, but none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was the envelope he had received 3 days ago, the one that changed everything. The letter was from a lawyer in the city, written in formal language that William had to read 5 times to understand. It said his daughter Emma wanted to see him after 15 years of silence. 15 years since she had walked out of his life, angry and hurt, blaming him for things he couldn't control. 15 years of wondering if she was happy, if she was healthy, if she ever thought about her old father. William had raised Emma alone after his wife passed away when Emma was only 8 years old. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to give her a decent life. They lived in a tiny apartment, but it was clean and filled with love. He taught her to ride a bicycle in the parking lot, helped her with homework at the kitchen table, and never missed a single school play or parent-teacher meeting. But when Emma turned 18, everything fell apart. She wanted to go to art school in New York, a dream that cost more money than William could ever imagine. He had savings, but not enough. He tried to explain that state college was more affordable, that she could still study art there. Emma saw it differently. She thought he didn't believe in her talent, that he was holding her back from her dreams. The fight that followed was terrible. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. Emma accused him of never supporting her, of being too poor to give her the life she deserved. William, hurt and exhausted, said things he regretted the moment they left his mouth. 2 days later, Emma packed her bags and left. She moved in with her aunt in California and cut off all contact. William tried everything to reach her. He called, sent letters, even drove to California once, but Emma refused to see him. Her aunt told him to give her time, that she needed space. Days turned into months, months into years, and the space between them grew wider and wider. Now, standing at his door after that long shift, William felt a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. The lawyer's letter said Emma wanted to meet him at his apartment this Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. That was today. In less than an hour, his daughter would knock on this door and he had no idea what to expect. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment looked exactly as it had 15 years ago. Same old couch with the faded blue cover, same wooden coffee table Emma had helped him build when she was 12, same photographs on the wall showing a younger Emma with missing teeth and pigtails. William hadn't changed much either. He couldn't afford to. His salary barely covered rent, utilities, and food. He had grown older, his hair completely gray now, his face marked with more wrinkles. But his heart still held the same love for his daughter that had never diminished, not even for a single day. He walked to the bathroom and looked at himself in the mirror. He looked tired, worn out by life. He splashed cold water on his face and tried to practice what he would say. Should he apologize first? Should he ask about her life? Should he tell her how much he missed her? The question swirled in his mind as he changed into his best shirt, a white button-down he saved for special occasions. He combed his hair and tried to look presentable. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. What if Emma still hated him? What if she came just to tell him off one final time? What if this meeting was about closure, about officially ending whatever relationship they once had? William sat on the couch and waited. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second feeling like an hour. He looked around the apartment, seeing it through Emma's eyes. Would she think he had given up? Would she see how little had changed and feel sad for him? Or worse, would she feel justified in her decision to leave? At 1:45, William heard footsteps in the hallway outside. His heart began to race. He stood up, then sat down, then stood up again. He didn't know what to do with his hands. The footsteps passed by his door, and he let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. More waiting, more silence, more memories flooding back. He remembered Emma's first day of school, how she had cried and held his hand so tight. He remembered teaching her to cook pancakes on Sunday mornings. He remembered her laughter, her stubbornness, her kind heart that always cared for stray animals and kids who got bullied at school. At 1:55, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was Emma. The message was simple and cold. She was downstairs and would be up in 5 minutes. William's mouth went dry. This was really happening. After all these years, he would see his little girl again, though she wasn't little anymore. She would be 33 now, a grown woman he barely knew. He stood by the door, unable to sit still. His mind raced through every possible scenario. What if she looked happy and successful? Proof that she didn't need him. What if she looked troubled, and he had missed his chance to help her? What if she brought someone with her, a husband or a child he had never met? The building was old, and he could hear every footstep on the stairs. Someone was coming up slowly, deliberately. William's chest felt tight. He put his hand over his heart, trying to calm himself down. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. There was a long pause, as if the person on the other side was gathering courage too. Then 3 soft knocks. William closed his eyes for a moment, said a silent prayer, and reached for the doorknob. William turned the doorknob and pulled the door open. His breath caught in his throat. Standing before him was Emma, but not the angry 18-year-old who had stormed out all those years ago. This Emma had softer features, tired eyes, and an expression that seemed caught between hope and fear. She wore a simple gray coat, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked so much like her mother that William felt his eyes begin to water. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there, father and daughter, separated by a doorway and 15 years of silence. Emma's hands were clutched around the strap of her purse, knuckles white from gripping so hard. William noticed her eyes were red, as if she had been crying before she came up. Emma opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She tried again and managed a barely audible whisper. William didn't catch what she said, but he saw her chin trembling. Without thinking, he stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. Emma hesitated, then slowly walked past him into the apartment. She stood in the middle of the living room, looking around as if seeing a ghost of her past. Her eyes landed on the photographs on the wall, on the coffee table they had built together, on the old couch where they used to watch movies on Friday nights. William closed the door and turned to face her, maintaining a respectful distance. He didn't want to overwhelm her or make her feel trapped. Emma's gaze finally settled on a particular photograph. It showed her at age 10, missing her 2 front teeth, holding up a painting she had made in school. William had framed it and hung it in the most prominent spot in the living room. It had stayed there for 15 years, unmoved and carefully dusted every week. A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. She quickly wiped it away and turned to face her father. When their eyes met, something broke inside both of them. All the rehearsed speeches, all the prepared statements, all the carefully chosen words disappeared. They were just 2 people who had loved each other deeply and lost their way. William's voice came out rough and emotional when he finally spoke. He told Emma she looked well, that he was glad she came. Emma nodded but couldn't seem to form words yet. She was looking at him differently now, noticing things she hadn't let herself see before. She saw how much older he looked, how worn his clothes were, how the apartment had barely changed because he probably couldn't afford to change it. She noticed his work shoes by the door, old and repaired multiple times. She saw the small kitchen with its outdated appliances, the same ones from her childhood. She saw the bills stacked neatly on the counter, and even from a distance she could see they were from the grocery store where he worked. Her father, who had once worked multiple jobs to raise her, was still working in his 70s. Emma's throat felt tight. She had spent 15 years being angry, being stubborn, being convinced that her father had failed her. But standing here now, seeing how he lived, seeing that photograph still hanging on the wall, she began to understand things differently. Her aunt had told her the truth 6 months ago, something Emma had been too proud to hear before. Her father hadn't refused to send her to art school because he didn't believe in her. He had actually taken out a loan, a massive loan that would have buried him in debt for decades. But Emma's aunt, his sister, had found out and stopped him. She told Emma's father that sacrificing his entire future and retirement wasn't love, it was self-destruction. She convinced him that Emma needed to learn responsibility, that she could work her way through state college and still pursue her dreams. But Emma, young and full of dreams, had only seen rejection. She had seen her father as an obstacle instead of a protector, and in her anger and hurt she had said terrible things. She had called him selfish and unsupportive. She had accused him of never really loving her enough. Those words had haunted William for 15 years, and they had haunted Emma too once she matured enough to understand what she had done. William gestured toward the couch and asked if Emma wanted to sit down. She nodded and they both sat, leaving a cushion of space between them. The silence felt heavy but not entirely uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people trying to find their way back to each other, across a canyon of lost time. Emma finally found her voice. She started slowly, telling William that she had wanted to come back many times over the years. She had picked up the phone countless times but couldn't bring herself to dial. She was ashamed of what she had said, afraid that he wouldn't forgive her, worried that too much time had passed. William listened without interrupting. He watched his daughter struggle with her words, seeing the pain in her expression. Emma told him about her life in California. She had worked as a waitress while taking art classes at a community college. It took her 6 years to finish her degree because she could only afford a few classes at a time. After graduation, she worked as a graphic designer for various small companies. She described the struggles, the tiny apartments, the ramen noodles for dinner, the stress of making rent each month. As she spoke, she realized that she had lived the exact kind of life her father had tried to spare her from. The difference was that he had lived that life while raising a child, making his sacrifice so much greater. Emma's voice broke when she admitted that her aunt had finally told her the truth about the loan William had tried to take out. She learned that her father had been willing to sacrifice everything for her dream. She also learned that he had sent her money every month for the first 5 years after she left, even though she returned every check unopened. He had deposited money into an account in her name, hoping that one day she might need it. William's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't known that Emma knew about any of that. He shifted uncomfortably, unused to being seen so clearly. Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Inside were all the returned checks, kept in pristine condition, and a bank statement showing the account William had set up. Emma had never touched the money. She couldn't bring herself to use it while they weren't speaking, and somehow, using it would have made the distance between them feel permanent. Now Emma was crying openly, tears streaming down her face as she tried to apologize. She said she was so sorry for the cruel things she had said, for wasting 15 years, for being too proud and stubborn to see the truth. She told him she understood now what he had been trying to do, that he had always been protecting her, even when it meant being seen as the villain in her story. William's own tears began to fall. He had imagined this moment so many times, but the reality was overwhelming. He reached out slowly and took Emma's hand in his. Her hand was warm, alive, real. His daughter was here, really here, after all this time. He told her that he had never stopped loving her, not for one single day. He said he was sorry too, sorry for not explaining things better, sorry for not fighting harder to make her understand. They sat together on that old couch, holding hands and crying, releasing 15 years of pain and regret. But Emma's visit wasn't just about apologies. William could sense there was something else, something she hadn't told him yet. He could see it in the way she kept glancing at the door, in the nervous energy that hadn't quite left her body despite the emotional release. Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. She looked at William with an expression that mixed nervousness and anticipation. She told him there was something else, something important she needed to share. William felt his stomach tighten with worry. Was she sick? Was she in trouble? After all these years apart, he couldn't bear the thought of losing her again. Emma stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street below. She seemed to be gathering courage for whatever she needed to say. William waited patiently, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, Emma turned around and told him that she wasn't alone. She had someone with her, someone who was waiting downstairs because Emma wasn't sure how this meeting would go. William's mind raced through possibilities. A husband? A partner? He nodded slowly, telling Emma that whoever was important to her was welcome in his home. Emma's expression softened slightly, but the nervousness remained. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text message. Then she looked at her father and said something that made his world stop spinning for a moment. She told him that he had a grandson, a 6-year-old boy named Charlie. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. William's mouth fell open, no sound coming out. A grandson. He had a grandchild he had never met, never even knew existed, 6 years old. 6 years of birthdays, first days of school, lost teeth, scraped knees, bedtime stories, all missed. Emma saw the shock on her father's face and quickly started explaining. She said she had gotten pregnant when she was 27, during a brief relationship that didn't work out. The father left before Charlie was born and had never been part of their lives. Emma had raised Charlie alone, just as William had raised her alone. The parallel wasn't lost on either of them. She explained that she had wanted to tell William so many times. especially when Charlie was born, and she realized how hard single parenthood was. Every sleepless night, every worry about money, every moment of exhaustion, she thought about her father and understood him better. But shame and pride kept holding her back. How could she reach out after abandoning him? How could she ask for help after the terrible things she had said? William finally found his voice. He asked about Charlie, what he was like, what he enjoyed doing. Emma's whole face changed when she talked about her son. She told William that Charlie loved drawing and painting just like she did. He was shy but incredibly kind, always worried about other people's feelings. He loved dinosaurs and space and asking impossible questions about how the world worked. She pulled out her phone and showed William photographs. There he was, this little boy with Emma's eyes and a bright, curious smile. In one photo, he was holding up a drawing of a rocket ship. In another, he was at the beach building an elaborate sandcastle. In a third, he was wearing a cape made from a bedsheet, pretending to be a superhero. William stared at each photograph, memorizing every detail of this grandson he had never known existed. Emma's voice grew softer as she explained why she had finally decided to reach out. 6 months ago, Charlie had come home from school and asked about his grandfather. His teacher had assigned a family tree project, and Charlie wanted to know about Emma's father. Emma had always told him that his grandfather lived far away, keeping it vague and avoiding the painful truth. But Charlie was persistent. He asked questions that Emma couldn't easily answer. Why didn't they visit? Why didn't they video chat? Why were there no pictures of his grandfather? Emma realized she couldn't keep lying to her son. She also realized that her pride had cost Charlie the chance to know his grandfather, the same way it had cost her 15 years with her father. That night, Emma had looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. She had become exactly what she once accused her father of being, someone who let pride and stubbornness damage precious relationships. She decided then that she needed to make things right, not just for herself but for Charlie. Emma had contacted a lawyer to help her locate William, not knowing he had never moved from the same apartment. When she learned he was still there, still working at the same grocery store, still living in that small apartment, her heart had broken. While she had been nursing her anger and pride, her father had been living modestly and alone, probably hoping every day that she might come back. William listened to everything, his emotions swirling between joy at having a grandson and sadness at all the missed time. He asked Emma if Charlie knew he was here, if the boy wanted to meet him. Emma nodded and said that Charlie had been excited about meeting his grandfather, but she had been honest with him that they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and that she wasn't sure how it would go. William stood up, his legs slightly shaky. He walked to the window and looked down at the street. He asked Emma where Charlie was right now. She pointed to a blue car parked across the street. William could see a small figure in the back seat. His grandson was right there, just a few stories below, waiting to meet him. The realization hit William like a wave. He was about to meet his grandson for the first time. A 6-year-old boy who probably imagined all sorts of things about what a grandfather should be like. Would William disappoint him? Would Charlie be scared of this old man he had never met? What if William said the wrong thing or didn't know how to relate to a modern child? Emma must have seen the worry on his face because she came to stand beside him at the window. She put her hand on his shoulder and told him something that made his eyes fill with tears again. She said that she had shown Charlie all the old photographs, including ones of William, teaching her to ride a bike and helping her with school projects. She had told Charlie that his grandfather was the kindest, most hard-working, most loving person she had ever known. She admitted that she had needed to say those words out loud to Charlie, to finally admit them to herself. In preparing her son to meet his grandfather, Emma had been forced to confront her own feelings and memories. She had been forced to separate her teenage anger from the truth of who her father really was. William asked Emma if he looked okay, if he should change his shirt or comb his hair again. Emma smiled through her tears and told him he looked perfect. She said Charlie was a little nervous too, that he had changed his shirt 3 times that morning and kept asking Emma if his grandfather would like him. The vulnerability in that statement hit William hard. This little boy, his grandson, was worried about being liked by a grandfather he had never met. William suddenly felt an overwhelming need to meet Charlie, to tell him that he was already loved beyond measure, that nothing Charlie could do or say would ever change that. Emma sent another text message and told William that she had asked her friend to bring Charlie up. The friend had been sitting in the car with Charlie, keeping him company while Emma had this first meeting with William. William felt panic and excitement mixing together. In just a few minutes, he would meet his grandson for the first time. He asked Emma what he should say, how he should act. Emma told him to just be himself, that Charlie would love him. They heard footsteps on the stairs again, but this time there were two sets, one heavy and one light and quick. The lighter footsteps seemed to hop more than walk, the sound of a child who couldn't quite contain his energy. William and Emma moved to stand near the door. William straightened his shirt one more time and took a deep breath. Emma reached over and squeezed his hand, giving him strength. The footsteps reached the landing and stopped outside the door. There was a brief, quiet conversation, then a gentle knock, different from Emma's knock earlier. This one was hesitant, small, the knock of a child's hand. William looked at Emma and she nodded encouragingly. He reached for the doorknob, his hand trembling again, but for an entirely different reason now. He was about to meet his grandson. After 72 years of life, after 15 years of loneliness and regret, after thinking he might never have a family again, he was about to open this door and meet a little boy who carried his blood, his daughter's eyes, and a whole future of possibilities. William opened the door and looked down. Standing there was the smallest person who had ever held such power over his heart. Charlie was tiny for 6 years old, with messy brown hair and big eyes that were currently opened wide with a mixture of curiosity and shyness. He wore a blue shirt with a dinosaur on it and clutched a folded piece of paper in his small hands. Behind him stood a woman in her 30s, Emma's friend, who gave William a warm, encouraging smile. Charlie stared up at William, his mouth slightly open, taking in every detail of this grandfather he had heard so much about. William stared back, completely frozen, not trusting himself to speak without breaking down. The moment stretched between them, delicate and precious, while Emma's friend quietly excused herself, saying she would wait in the car. Emma knelt down beside her son and gently encouraged him forward. She whispered something in his ear that made Charlie nod slowly. The little boy took 2 careful steps into the apartment, still looking up at William with those enormous, questioning eyes. William finally managed to move, lowering himself down to one knee so he could be at eye level with his grandson. The position made his old joints protest, but he didn't care. Up close, William could see so much of Emma in Charlie's face, and something of his late wife too. The boy had the same slight dimple in his chin that William's wife had, the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. It was like looking at a miracle, seeing the family resemblance span generations, proof that love and blood continued beyond any argument or separation. Charlie spoke first, his voice small but clear. He said hello and that his name was Charlie, as if William might not know. William's voice came out rough and emotional when he replied, telling Charlie that he was so very happy to meet him. Charlie studied William's face for a moment longer, then slowly held out the folded piece of paper he had been holding. William took it carefully, his hands shaking slightly. Charlie told him that he had made a drawing for him. William unfolded the paper and felt his vision blur with tears. It was a picture done in crayon and marker, showing 3 figures, a small one labeled me, a medium one labeled Mom, and a tall one labeled Grandpa. They were all holding hands and standing in front of a house with a big sun overhead. The drawing was simple, the way all children's drawings are, but to William it was the most beautiful piece of art he had ever seen. Charlie had drawn him into the family portrait, had included him, had imagined a world where they were all together. William looked at the smiling stick figure labeled Grandpa and felt something break and heal inside him at the same time. He told Charlie that it was the most wonderful drawing anyone had ever given him. Charlie's face lit up with the kind of pure joy that only children can show so openly. The boy's shyness started to melt away and he took another step closer to William. He told his grandfather that he loved drawing, just like his mom did when she was little. William carefully folded the drawing and put it in his shirt pocket, right over his heart. He told Charlie that he would keep it there always. Then, taking a chance, William opened his arms slightly, offering a hug but not forcing one. Charlie looked at his mother, who nodded with tears streaming down her face. The little boy stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around William's neck. William hugged his grandson for the first time, feeling the small, warm body against his, smelling the kid scent of shampoo and crayons and something sweet like juice. His tears fell freely now, landing in Charlie's hair. Emma came and wrapped her arms around both of them, and for a moment they stayed like that. 3 generations reconnected, a family healing itself one hug at a time. When they finally pulled apart, Charlie looked at William with new confidence. The boy asked if he could see the apartment and all the pictures on the wall. William stood up, his knees creaking, and told Charlie he could see anything he wanted. Emma smiled and suggested they all sit down, and soon they were arranged on the old couch, Charlie sitting between William and Emma. Charlie asked questions the way only children can, direct and without filter. He wanted to know how old William was, if he liked dinosaurs, what his favorite color was, if he had any pets. William answered each question patiently, delighted by his grandson's curiosity. When Charlie learned that William was 72, his eyes went wide and he said that was really, really old. Emma looked embarrassed, but William laughed, a real laugh that felt good in his chest. Charlie noticed all the photographs on the wall and wanted to hear about each one. William told him stories about Emma as a little girl, about the bike riding lessons and the school projects, and the time Emma had tried to give a bath to a stray cat and ended up soaking wet herself. Charlie giggled at each story, and Emma blushed, but she was smiling too, remembering a childhood she had almost let anger erase. As they talked, something magical happened. The awkwardness faded, the years of separation seemed less important, and the apartment filled with a warmth it hadn't felt in far too long. Charlie's laughter rang out, pure and joyful, and William realized he couldn't remember the last time he had heard a child laugh in his home. Charlie eventually spotted the coffee table and asked about it. Emma told him that she and Grandpa William had built it together when she was about his age. Charlie's face showed amazement. He ran his small hand over the wood surface, tracing the imperfect edges. He asked if William could teach him to build something too. William felt his throat tighten with emotion as he promised that he would, that they would build many things together. Emma watched her father and son together and felt overwhelmed with different emotions. Regret for all the time they had lost, gratitude that they still had time ahead, and love for both of these people who meant everything to her. She took out her phone and snapped a photo of William and Charlie sitting together, their heads bent over the coffee table as William explained how they had built it. As the afternoon wore on, Charlie grew more comfortable. He asked if he could draw, and William quickly found some old paper and the box of crayons he had kept from Emma's childhood. Charlie sat at that same kitchen table where Emma had once done her homework and started drawing with intense concentration. William sat across from him just watching, marveling at this second chance he never thought he would get. Emma made tea in the small kitchen, using the same old kettle she remembered from her childhood. Everything in this apartment was old, worn, but cared for. She realized her father had frozen his life in time, keeping everything the way it was when she left, as if he had been waiting for her to come back. The thought made her heart ache. Charlie finished his drawing and showed it to William. This one showed a tall man and a small boy building something together, with tools scattered around them. Charlie explained that it was him and Grandpa building a treehouse. William promised they would figure out a way to make that happen somehow, even though he didn't have a tree or a yard. The promise seemed enough for Charlie, who beamed with happiness. As the sun began to set, Emma knew they would have to leave soon. They had a long drive back to California, though Emma had already decided they would be making this trip much more often. But before they left, she needed to tell William something else, something she had been building up the courage to say all afternoon. She called Charlie over and asked if he wanted to show Grandpa the other thing they had brought. Charlie's eyes lit up and he ran to his small backpack by the door. He pulled out a large envelope and brought it to William with great ceremony. William looked at Emma with questions in his eyes as he opened the envelope. Inside were papers, official-looking documents. As William read them, his hands began to shake. They were job applications and apartment listings, all in the same city where William lived. Emma explained that she had been offered a position at a design firm nearby. She had told Charlie about his grandfather and about the city where she grew up, and they had decided together that they wanted to move here, to be close to family. William looked up from the papers, unable to speak. Emma told him that they were planning to move within the next 2 months. She said she wanted Charlie to know his grandfather, to have the relationship she had thrown away. She wanted them to be a family again, to have Sunday dinners and holidays together, to make up for lost time. Charlie added that he wanted to see Grandpa lots and lots, maybe every day if that was okay. William pulled both of them into another hug, this one lasting even longer than the first. He told them it was more than okay. It was everything he had prayed for during 15 years of loneliness. The evening light cast a golden glow through the apartment windows as Emma and Charlie prepared to leave. Charlie had made William promise at least 5 times that they would see each other again soon, and each time William promised with his whole heart. The little boy seemed reluctant to go, lingering by the door and asking just one more question, then another. Before they left, Emma asked if she could take one more photograph. She wanted to remember this day, this perfect, impossible day when everything had changed. William and Charlie stood together, and Emma captured the image of her father's hand resting gently on her son's shoulder, both of them smiling, both of them looking like they belonged together. Charlie gave William one more tight hug, making William promise to put his drawings on the refrigerator like proper grandparents do. William solemnly promised, and the moment Charlie and Emma walked out the door, he did exactly that. The 2 drawings looked bright and cheerful on the old refrigerator, bringing life to the quiet kitchen. After they left, William stood in the middle of his apartment, feeling like he was standing in a completely different world than the one he had woken up to that morning. The same furniture surrounded him, the same walls, the same everything. But it all felt transformed by hope and possibility. He looked at the spot on the couch where Charlie had sat, at the kitchen table where his grandson had drawn, at the door where Emma had stood crying and apologizing. He walked to his bedroom and opened the drawer where he kept his most precious possessions. Inside was a small box containing Emma's baby teeth, her first library card, a Mother's Day card she had made him when she was 7, because she said he was like both parents to her. He had kept everything, unable to let go even when it seemed like she was never coming back. Now he added the folded drawing from his pocket to the box, handling it like the treasure it was. He sat on the edge of his bed and let himself cry again. But these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of overwhelming joy. He had spent 15 years carrying the weight of their broken relationship, and in one afternoon that weight had transformed into something beautiful. Sleep didn't come easily that night. William kept replaying every moment, every word, every expression on Charlie's face. He thought about Emma's apology, about her tears, about the way she had looked at him with love and regret. He thought about the job applications and apartment listings, about the promise of Sunday dinners and holidays together. It seemed too good to be true, like a dream he might wake up from. But when morning came, the drawings were still on the refrigerator. Emma's promised text message arrived saying they had gotten home safely, and that Charlie had talked about Grandpa William the entire drive back. She sent a photo of Charlie sleeping in his bed, clutching a small frame containing one of the photos from William's wall that Emma had taken a picture of. The boy wanted his grandfather close even when sleeping. The following weeks passed in a blur of phone calls and video chats. Charlie would call William after school and tell him about his day with the breathless enthusiasm only children possess. He would hold up his drawings to the camera, and William would praise each one genuinely. They talked about dinosaurs and space and all the things they would build together when Charlie moved closer. Emma called too, usually after Charlie went to bed. She and William talked about everything they had missed, filling in the gaps of 15 years. Emma told him about the struggles and triumphs of single motherhood, about the guilt she carried, about how becoming a mother herself had made her understand him in ways she never could before. William shared his own loneliness, but also his hope that had never quite died, the small voice that kept telling him Emma would come back someday. They talked about practical things too. Emma's new job, apartment hunting, schools for Charlie. William offered to help however he could, though they both knew his resources were limited. Emma told him that his presence was what they needed, not his money. She had learned that lesson the hard way. One night, Emma confessed something that had been weighing on her. She told William that her aunt, his sister, had passed away 8 months earlier. It was her aunt's death that had finally pushed Emma to reach out. Before she died, Emma's aunt had made Emma promise to reconcile with William. She had told Emma that holding grudges was a waste of precious time, that life was too short to let pride keep families apart. Emma's aunt had also confessed that she regretted intervening all those years ago. While she still believed she had done the right thing stopping William from taking that massive loan, she wished she had worked harder to help Emma and William communicate better. She had watched her brother suffer for 15 years and felt responsible. Her dying wish was that Emma would give William another chance. William cried when he heard about his sister's death, sad that she was gone but grateful for her final gift to him. He told Emma that his sister had been right to stop him from taking the loan, that Emma's aunt had always been the wise one. He was grateful she had pushed Emma to reach out, even if it took her death to make it happen. As the moving date approached, William found himself preparing in small ways. He cleaned the apartment more thoroughly than he had in years. He researched playgrounds and parks nearby where he could take Charlie. He asked his manager at the grocery store about reducing his hours so he would have more time for his family. His manager, who had heard William talk about his daughter for years, was happy to accommodate him. William's co-workers noticed the change in him. The quiet, sad man who had worked among them for years suddenly seemed lighter, younger even. He smiled more, talked more, and showed everyone pictures of his grandson on his phone. They were happy for him, this kind old man who had clearly been carrying a heavy burden that had finally been lifted. 2 days before Emma and Charlie were scheduled to move, Emma called with panic in her voice. The apartment they were supposed to rent had fallen through at the last minute. The landlord had decided to sell instead of rent. Emma had been searching frantically for alternatives, but everything was either too expensive or not available until months later. She was apologizing, saying they might have to delay the move, and William could hear her trying not to cry. Without hesitation, William told her they could stay with him. Emma protested immediately, saying his apartment was too small, that they couldn't impose like that. William insisted. He said they could take his bedroom, and he would sleep on the couch. It would be temporary just until they found something else. What mattered was that they were together. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked if he was sure, really sure. William told her he had never been more sure of anything in his life. He had lived alone in this apartment for 15 years. And if it took sleeping on a couch to have his family close, he would do it gladly. Emma accepted, her voice thick with emotion, thanking him over and over. William spent the next 2 days rearranging his apartment. He moved his clothes into the small hallway closet and cleared out his bedroom completely. He borrowed a small bed from a neighbor for Charlie and set it up in the corner. He hung some of the drawings Charlie had sent him on the walls to make the room feel welcoming for his grandson. Emma had sent him Charlie's favorite colors and interests, and William did his best to make the space feel special. He bought new sheets and towels, spending money he really couldn't spare but not caring. He stocked the kitchen with foods he thought a 6-year-old might like. He even bought a small bookshelf and filled it with children's books from the thrift store, remembering how much Emma had loved reading at bedtime when she was young. On moving day, William took the day off from work. He stood outside the apartment building, watching the street for their car. When he finally saw it pull up, his heart felt like it might burst. Emma got out first, looking tired from the drive but smiling when she saw him. Then Charlie tumbled out of the back seat, running toward William with his arms outstretched. William caught his grandson in a hug, spinning him around once, like he used to do with Emma when she was small. Charlie giggled and said he was home. He was finally home with Grandpa. Those simple words from a 6-year-old made William realize that home wasn't about the place or the things in it. Home was about the people you loved being close enough to hold. Living together in the small apartment was an adjustment for everyone. Emma and Charlie shared the bedroom while William made the couch his new bed. The space was cramped. The bathroom schedule required coordination, and privacy was nearly impossible. But none of that mattered because they were together, and being together made every inconvenience feel like a small price to pay for something priceless. The first morning, William woke to the sound of Charlie's feet padding across the floor. The little boy appeared around the corner, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. He climbed onto the couch next to William and whispered that he was happy they lived together now. William pulled him close, and they sat together watching the sunrise through the window, neither one needing to say anything more. Routines developed naturally. William would wake early and make breakfast before his shift at the grocery store. Emma would get Charlie ready for school, and William would walk them to the bus stop before heading to work. In the evenings, they would gather around the small kitchen table for dinner, talking about their days. Charlie would show William his schoolwork, and Emma would tell them about her new job. The apartment that had been so quiet for 15 years was now filled with life. Charlie's toys appeared in corners, Emma's art supplies spread across the coffee table, and the refrigerator became completely covered with Charlie's drawings and school papers. The bathroom cabinet held 3 toothbrushes instead of 1. The coat rack by the door held jackets in 3 different sizes. It was crowded and chaotic and absolutely perfect. On weekends, William would take Charlie to the park, while Emma worked on design projects or searched for apartments. He would push his grandson on the swings, help him across the monkey bars, and sit on benches with other grandparents, finally belonging to that club of elders who watched little ones play. The other grandparents welcomed him warmly, and William found himself part of a community he hadn't known existed. Charlie started first grade at the local school, and William attended the parent orientation with Emma, proud to be there as Grandpa. He met Charlie's teacher and volunteered to help with classroom activities when his work schedule allowed. The teacher mentioned that Charlie had talked about his grandfather constantly, that the boy clearly adored him. True to his promise, William started teaching Charlie to build things. They began with small projects, a birdhouse made from a kit, then a simple wooden box. William showed Charlie how to measure carefully, how to sand the rough edges, how to take pride in work done with his own hands. Charlie's tongue would stick out slightly when he concentrated, the same way Emma's used to, the same way William's probably did too. Emma found moments alone with her father when Charlie was at school. They would have coffee together before she left for work, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes they talked about the past, processing the hurt and the healing. Sometimes they talked about the future, about dreams and possibilities. And sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, the kind only possible between people who truly know each other. One Saturday morning, about 6 weeks after they moved in, Emma woke to find William and Charlie missing from the apartment. A note on the table said they had gone on a special mission and would be back soon. Emma smiled, trusting her father completely with her son in a way she couldn't have imagined doing a few months earlier. William and Charlie returned 2 hours later, both grinning mysteriously. They were carrying bags from the hardware store and the craft shop. Charlie was practically bouncing with excitement, making William laugh with his enthusiasm. They had planned a surprise project for Emma, something to thank her for bringing them all together. Over the next week, William and Charlie worked on their secret project every time Emma was at work. They used the small balcony off the apartment, which had been empty except for a dying plant. William taught Charlie how to build planter boxes, how to prepare soil, how to transplant flowers. They chose bright colors, knowing Emma loved vivid hues in her art. When they revealed the finished balcony garden to Emma, she burst into tears. It was small but beautiful, filled with flowers and herbs, a tiny oasis in their crowded building. Charlie explained that Grandpa said everyone needs beauty around them, and since Mom made beauty for other people with her designs, they wanted to make beauty for her. Emma hugged them both, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. The balcony became Emma's favorite spot. She would sit there in the early mornings with her coffee, sometimes sketching, sometimes just watching the flowers grow. William would join her occasionally, and they would talk while the city woke up around them. Those quiet morning conversations became sacred to both of them, a time to connect without the rush of daily life interrupting. As months passed, Emma continued searching for an apartment, but with less urgency than before. The 3 of them had fallen into a rhythm that worked despite the cramped space. Charlie loved living with his grandfather, and Emma loved seeing them together every day. William, who had spent 15 years alone, treasured every chaotic, crowded moment. One evening, Emma sat William down for a serious conversation. She had been looking at the finances, and she wanted to discuss something important. William worried that she was going to insist on moving out, that she felt they had imposed too long. Instead, Emma proposed something entirely different. She had been promoted at her design firm and was making decent money now. She wanted to find a larger apartment, something with 2 real bedrooms, and she wanted William to live with them permanently. She would cover the rent and bills, considering it payment for all the years he had sacrificed for her, and for the childcare he now provided, which saved her from expensive daycare costs. William started to protest, his pride making him uncomfortable with the idea of his daughter supporting him. But Emma stopped him gently. She reminded him that he had worked himself to exhaustion raising her alone, that he was still working at 72 when he should be able to rest. She told him that accepting help wasn't weakness. It was allowing family to take care of each other the way he had always taken care of her. She pointed out that Charlie needed his grandfather, that she needed him too. She asked him to let her do this not out of obligation but out of love. William looked at his daughter, seeing the confident, kind woman she had become, and felt pride swell in his chest. She had grown into someone remarkable, someone who understood that family meant supporting each other through every season of life. With tears in his eyes, William agreed. The three of them started apartment hunting together, making it a weekend adventure. Charlie had opinions about everything, insisting they needed a place where he and Grandpa could have a workshop for their building projects. Emma wanted good light for her design work and a kitchen bigger than a closet. William just wanted them to be happy. They found a place 2 months later, a 3-bedroom apartment in a building with a community garden. It was perfect for their needs, with space for everyone and room to grow. The rent was more than Emma had planned to spend, but her boss had given her another raise after seeing her innovative designs. Things were falling into place in ways that felt like the universe was finally on their side. Moving day was chaotic, but happy. William gave notice at the grocery store, finally retiring after decades of work. His co-workers threw him a small party, giving him a card signed by everyone and a gift certificate to a restaurant. They told him to enjoy his retirement with his family, and William promised he would. In the new apartment, Charlie got his own room, which he insisted on decorating with all the drawings he and William had made together. Emma's room had big windows perfect for her work. William's room was smaller but comfortable, and he set up a reading corner where he could sit with Charlie for bedtime stories. The workshop space Charlie had insisted on was actually a corner of the living room, but William set it up properly with a workbench and tools organized on the wall. He and Charlie christened it by building a shelf for Charlie's growing collection of books and treasures. They worked side by side, grandfather teaching grandson, the same way William had taught Emma all those years ago. On their first night in the new apartment, they ordered pizza and sat on the floor because the furniture wasn't all arranged yet. Charlie was exhausted but happy, leaning against William and chattering about all the things they would do now that they had more space. Emma watched them together and felt a peace she had never quite known before. Later, after Charlie was asleep, Emma and William sat on the balcony of their new place, which was bigger than the old one and had a beautiful view of the city lights. Emma thanked her father for giving her another chance, for forgiving her, for loving her even when she had been so hurtful. William took her hand and told her that love didn't keep score, that family meant showing up for each other, especially after mistakes. He told her that the last few months had been the happiest of his life since her mother died. He had his daughter back and a grandson he adored. He had gone from lonely and forgotten to needed and loved. He said if he could go back and change the argument that drove them apart, he wouldn't, because that pain had led them to this moment, and this moment was worth everything they had gone through to get here. Emma rested her head on her fath,